Hello and welcome back to AbsurdLand. In this video, you'll see eerie and shocking old photos and the chilling stories behind them. If you like the video, give it a like and subscribe for more. Wrapped human bodies at the University of Pennsylvania, circa 1915. Many specimens came from grave robbing in nearby Potter's Fields, a common but controversial practice before the Pennsylvania Anatomy Act of 1883 gave medical schools legal access to bodies for study. Ruth Snyder's mid-execution photo taken by Tom Howard and published the next day in the New York Daily News. She was executed for plotting with her lover to kill her husband in order to collect insurance money. The case became notorious for its scandalous details, and the secret photo of her death made headlines worldwide as one of the most infamous crime images of its time. Couple at a fair in Mexico, 1940. The woman's bandaged face, crown of thorns, and the cactus nailed to her chest were part of a traditional act of religious penance. Such displays of pain and sacrifice were ways for believers to show devotion, ask for healing, or give thanks during the fair. In the Victorian era, it was common, to put it delicately, for families to pose for photographs with deceased relatives as a way to remember and honor them. In 1937, during the Japanese invasion of China, anyone seen as a collaborator could face terrifying punishments. Some were locked in cages and hung up in public as a warning, showing just how brutal and unforgiving those times really were. Indigenous rights activist and environmentalist Eerie brandished her machete in the face of a Brazilian government official who was trying to convince indigenous leaders to accept a mega dam project in the Amazon, 1989. This mummified head is often claimed to belong to the first nun ever possessed by a demon. But the real story behind such claims traces back to the 1600s in Loudun, France. There, Sister Jeanne des Anges was said to be overtaken by spirits, sparking mass hysteria and leading to the public execution of a priest. In the 1970s, German student Anneliese Michel began showing terrifying symptoms: violent convulsions, voices, and hallucinations. Believing she was possessed, her parents allowed priests to perform 67 exorcisms over 10 months. She eventually died from malnutrition at just 23 years old. Her case shocked the world and later inspired the exorcism of Emily Rose. Anne Hodges shows her bruise after being struck by a meteorite in 1954. She was at home in Alabama when a space rock crashed through her roof and hit her, making her the only known person in modern history injured by a meteorite. Many claim that Gerald Gardner performed a ritual in 1952 with a mummified ape. This story has circulated widely, but lacks credible proof. Even so, the idea of Wiccan magic combined with preserved animal remains shocks. Wicca is a modern pagan religion that practices nature-based witchcraft. Mrs. Fannie Mills, also known as the Ohio Bigfoot Girl. Born around 1860, she had Milroy's disease, which made her feet nearly 19 inches long. In the 1880s, people paid to see her at sideshows, and ads even promised $5,000 to any man who'd marry her, though she was already married. She died in 1899 at 39. In this 1890 picture, a woman is shown standing in a narrow cell, her arms affixed to the wall in a crucifixion pose. Though it looks inhumane today, this was a common treatment for mental illness in Germany at the time, believed to calm patients and control their behavior. During Germany's hyperinflation, a woman lights a fire using completely worthless banknotes. Money had lost so much value that it was cheaper to burn than to buy fuel. 1922. Walter Yeo was the first person to undergo plastic surgery. He lost both his upper and lower eyelids in 1916 during the Battle of Jutland while serving on HMS Warspite. In 1917, surgeon Sir Harold Delph Gillies rebuilt his face, pioneering modern plastic surgery. The very last moments of a Japanese dive bomber. In its final dive during World War II, the plane was attacking Allied targets when it was shot down or crashed. The image captures the deadly risk these pilots faced and the intense final seconds of aerial combat. 1869. George Hall created the Cardiff Giant, a 10-foot fake petrified man to trick people who took the Bible literally. He buried it on a farm in New York, then had it discovered. Thousands believed it was real because it seemed to confirm stories of giants in the Bible. Hall later admitted it was a hoax, though some people still clung to the belief. John Dukes, aka Nicodemus, was a freak show star born with severely truncated limbs, yet was known for surprising strength and acrobatic acts. Rumors once claimed he died in the Ohio River, but he kept appearing years later. His life shows how people turned physical deformity into spectacle, and how truth and myth blurred to sell a show. Around 1920, Charles Salmon & Sons made wood and metal prosthetic legs for the thousands of World War I soldiers who had lost limbs. These early designs allowed movement, but were crude, heavy, and extremely uncomfortable. These are the real-life outfits doctors would wear to treat plague patients in the 1600s. A Khanty mother and her child eating raw reindeer meat in the Yamal Peninsula, Yamalo-Nenets Autonomous Okrug, Northern Siberia, Russia, 1991. John McCain, USPOW in Vietnam for 5.5 years, 1967 to 1973. He suffered beatings, heat exhaustion, nail pulling, and was placed in solitary confinement for 2 years. He was driven to the brink of suicide, but declined early release unless every POW taken before him was released. Hideki Tojo, former Prime Minister of Japan, after a failed suicide attempt in September 1945. He had shot himself but survived, and American doctors quickly gave him a blood transfusion to save his life. The next day, Tojo was arrested and later executed for war crimes. After the fall, a photo from inside Hitler's bunker, Berlin, 1945. An SS officer's cap with the skull insignia lies on the floor. The skull symbol showed the wearer's loyalty to the SS and their willingness to face death. It may have belonged to one of Hitler's close aides as the Soviet army entered the bunker. Typhoid Mary, or Mary Mallon, was the first known asymptomatic carrier of typhoid fever in the U.S. She infected dozens of people while working as a cook, causing several deaths. Quarantined for life on North Brother Island in 1915, she spent over 23 years there. The ruins of the building still stand on the abandoned, poison ivy-covered island, making her story infamous as a shocking example of disease transmission and public health measures. 17-year-old Badi in custody before his execution at the hands of Nasiruddin Shah's guards. His crime was delivering a letter to the Shah. The letter told the Shah to pay attention to the message and to rule fairly. After fasting for 3 days outside the royal camp, Badi was arrested, tortured, and executed. Qajar, Iran, 1869. 8 months after the Chernobyl nuclear accident in April 1986, workers discovered a surprising sight beneath the damaged number 4 reactor, a black lava-like substance resembling a man-made volcano. Formed from melted nuclear fuel and reactor materials, it's highly radioactive, so dangerous that workers could only be near it for minutes before lethal doses of radiation would build up. A South Vietnamese woman grieving over a plastic bag holding the remains of her husband, discovered in a mass grave of civilians killed during the Tet Offensive. His body was recovered a year later in April 1969. Viktor Yushchenko, Ukrainian presidential candidate in 2004, was poisoned with dioxin on the orders of Vladimir Putin. The toxin caused severe disfigurement, giving him a pockmarked, burned appearance, and led to life-threatening illness. Despite this assassination attempt, Yushchenko survived and continued his campaign. This 1930s photo captures the final moments of a Chinese prisoner under Japanese occupation during the Second Sino-Japanese War. Public executions like this were used to terrify entire towns into obedience. For many civilians, even witnessing such a scene was enough to break any thought of resistance. Two young cousins in Yorkshire took photos that seemed to show tiny fairies. People believed them because the girls looked innocent, and photography couldn't prove otherwise. Even Sherlock Holmes's creator, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, thought they were real. Decades later, the cousins admitted it was a hoax. They used cardboard cutouts pinned in place, 1917 to 1920. Before the Titanic ever touched the water, this incredible photograph captured the sheer scale of its engineering. 3 massive bronze propellers dwarfed the shipyard workers standing beneath them. These same propellers now lie buried in the mud on the ocean floor, unseen since the vessel's tragic maiden voyage. This iceberg, photographed just 2 days before it sank the Titanic in April 1912, would soon collide with the ship, causing one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history. This 1910 photo shows an Achomawi baby tightly bound to a wooden cradleboard. To modernize, it looks almost cruel, but this was how mothers kept their infant safe while working or traveling, strapped so firmly they could barely move, yet protected from the cold and danger. An incredible photo of the total solar eclipse on July 11, 1991, in Chiapas, Mexico. Known as the eclipse of the century, it was one of the longest total eclipses of the last 100 years, plunging parts of the Earth into complete darkness for nearly 7 minutes. Shadow of a noose against a brick tower during the Nuremberg War crimes trials. The photo was taken outside the prison where Nazi leaders were held and later executed after the 1946 verdicts. 11 men were sentenced to death by hanging, carried out in the gymnasium of the prison shortly after midnight on October 16, 1946, Nuremberg, Germany. During the Renaissance, Germany and Italy reportedly used metal cages to punish political dissenters, exposing them in public as a warning to others. At first, this is what came to my mind when seeing the photo. This image circulates online, but it's probably not real. In 1869 Paraguay, children fight in a desperate war against the Triple Alliance, after nearly 70% of the adult male population has already died. Moroccan Police Commissioner Mustafa Tibet hangs his head at his trial. With the protection of other cops, Tibet kidnapped, assaulted, and raped at least 518 women and girls, albeit he might have had 1,200 plus victims. It remains the worst police corruption scandal in the country, 1993. 1939. Soviet soldiers inspect the abandoned gear of the defeated Japanese army at Khalkhin Gol. Over 17,000 Japanese soldiers were killed, and the loss forced Japan to shift focus to the Pacific, eventually leading to Pearl Harbor. One of the Palestinian terrorists responsible for the Munich massacre, where 11 Israeli athletes were kidnapped and killed standing on a balcony. This was part of a coordinated attack by the group Black September during the 1972 Olympics. 1923. Wembley Stadium. The 125,000-seat stadium gates were smashed by a raging crowd desperate to see Bolton beat West Ham. Nearly 300,000 people packed the stands and spilled onto the pitch. The match started 45 minutes late, and over 1,000 spectators were injured in the crush. In 1927, men in Canada are training on milking simulators, practicing without real cows to master the movements faster and more efficiently. At the 1980 Moscow Olympics, Polish wrestlers Jan Falandis at 48 kilograms and Adam Sandurski at 135 kilograms posed together, a striking contrast between the lightest and heaviest competitors. In 1950, the White House is gutted and rebuilt from the inside due to unsafe structures, while government operations continue around the construction. In 1959, Tibetan monks lay down their weapons before the Chinese army after a failed uprising following the 1950 invasion and the defeat of CYA-trained Tibetan fighters. This photo shows Jeffrey Dahmer in high school with a fellow student. For those who don't know, Dahmer later became a notorious serial killer in the United States. Even as a teenager, he displayed disturbing behavior, like mimicking others in unsettling ways and inserting himself into situations to get attention. A simple school photo, yet it already hints at the dark path he would follow. This photo shows what a human face would look like without any muscles. It's an early medical image, revealing just the bare structure beneath our expressions. No smile, no movement, just the still frame of what makes us human.
Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.